On my wedding night, I did not bleed. My husband announced to the world that he was demoting me from wife to concubine. For the sake of our years of affection, I will not have you drowned, but I will make you wish you were dead. I was forced to drink abortifacients and became his tool for venting his lust. During his wedding night with my stepsister, I was forced to serve them by the bedside. He hated me to the bone, devising every possible way to torture me. Arabella, this is the price for your infidelity. You're born into this life. I knelt in the snow for 3 days, begging only to break our engagement. The day I died was bright and sunny. The physician said I had no will to live, that my lamp of life had run out of oil. Connor's eyes were red with fury. He grabbed me by the collar and hauled me up. Who gave you permission to die? You haven't finished paying what you owe me. I didn't even have the strength to cough, but my lifeless eyes held a hint of a smile. Good. The more cruelly he treated me, the faster I would die. You are about to die, and you still won't tell me who your lover was. Do you love him that much? Only at that moment did I understand why Lila could so brazenly tell me that it was she and my stepmother who had arranged for my virginity to be taken before the wedding. When I first learned the truth, I had told Connor through tears. I thought that with my body's secret revealed, I could finally die with my name cleared. But he didn't believe me. He pushed me away, his face a mask of ice. Lila was right. You truly are this shameless. It is one thing to be a slut yourself, but must you drag others down with you? Lila knew he would never believe a word I said, not even on his deathbed. At this thought, hatred filled me, and I summoned all my strength to open my mouth. That man is 1,000 times better than you. Even in bed, he is far more vigorous. Connor lost all reason. He cursed the physician out of the room, and then tore my clothes. Arabella, even in death, you will die beneath me. He threw my lifeless body onto the bed and climbed on top of me like a beast. And as I stared at the sliver of light filtering through the window paper, I finally breathed my last. My relationship with Connor began in our youth, with a promise of marriage. I once thought my wedding day was my escape from a fiery pit, that I had found my soulmate. I never imagined it would all be ruined by a single blood-stained cloth. When I opened my eyes again, I took a golden hairpin and stabbed it fiercely into the soft flesh of my thigh. The piercing pain finally convinced me I was reborn. Despair and elation washed over me simultaneously, so overwhelming that I coughed up a mouthful of blood. Only then did I realize with clarity I was filled with such hate. I steadied myself with a chair and slowly wiped the blood from the table. If I remembered correctly, today was the day Connor's family would visit for the formal viewing, the day my stepmother and Lila would begin to plot against me in earnest. It is such a rare pleasure to have you visit, nephew. I should have Lila come out to see you. But the girl has been so wild lately, always running off. We have to send people to find her before she'll come home. As I approached the main hall, I heard my stepmother's carefully crafted words. A cold smile touched my lips as I had Mrs. Gable push the door open. With a creak, the conversation inside fell silent for a moment. So Mother is entertaining guests here. It was rude of me. I looked up. My stepmother and Lila sat on one side, Connor and his mother on the other. A perfect picture. One might think it was they who were being formally introduced. My stepmother's warm expression faltered slightly. You are quick on your feet today. Come, greet the Marchioness. Fighting a tremor that ran through my body, I walked past Connor. At this time, the Marchioness was still very fond of me, holding my hand and praising me endlessly. Connor also smiled with what seemed like genuine affection. I hunted a fine fox in the mountains last month. With winter approaching, you can have it made into a scarf and hand warmer. I turned my head, meeting Lila's jealous gaze with a sweet smile. Of course. Thank you, Lord Connor. Everyone in the capital knew that Connor loved me to his very core. My mother died when I was 2, and my life at home was one of cautious survival. My stepmother would praise me to death in public, only to be exceedingly harsh with me at home. The day I met Connor, I was kneeling in the corridor as punishment for eating 2 more of Lila's favorite pastries. The sun was vicious, blinding me. He was visiting my father and quietly left an umbrella for me. At the autumn viewing banquet the following month, he looked at me with pity. When my father was young, he doted on a concubine. I've learned a great deal about the schemes of the inner court. If things become too difficult, you can send someone to find me. My heart, long submerged in ice, suddenly stirred. His words alone brought forth years of suppressed tears. Connor was flustered, frantically blaming himself. My mistake, my mistake. I shouldn't have said something to upset you. I smiled through my tears. In the twilight of that day, I gave him my heart. How could I not hate him? He told me he understood the hardships of being a woman, how the strict rites suffocated us. He promised me his undivided love, swore to always believe me, to protect me with his life. He shared my resentments, cursing my stepmother and Lila, saying that once we were married, I would forever hold power over them to bolster my position in the family. He spent a fortune to build my reputation, always sending lavish gifts in the Marchioness's name. But it was also he who, while whispering sweet nothings to me, was entangled with my stepsister. I later learned that for every gift he brought back for me from his travels, my stepsister received one as well. In my final days of my past life, Lila visited me daily with gifts, recounting their romantic trysts, how they had coupled in the estate's back garden. Finally, Lila stepped on my hand and said with a sweet smile, "Sister, your perfect gentleman is much more real with me." He said he was tired of acting, and that he was quite relieved when he found out you were no longer a virgin. On my wedding day, the joyous music and red silk banners lifted me to the heavens. After years of suffering cold shoulders at home, my ordeal was finally over. Today, I had my own home, my own husband who truly loved me. So, when Connor lifted my veil, I smiled. My husband. The red candles cast a warm glow as I met Connor's eyes, full of wonder and tenderness. Arabella, I never knew such beauty existed in this world. From now on, we are husband and wife. I will treat you well. He took my hand, his touch reverent, his ragged breaths making me want to cry. The heavy wedding robe slowly fell away under his hands. I closed my eyes and leaned against his chest in peace. The dream shattered in an instant. Before I could open my eyes, I was dragged by my hair and thrown to the floor. Connor held up the pristine white cloth, his eyes red. "Where is the blood?" I was still in shock, clutching the wedding robes to cover my body, trying to ignore the discomfort below. When I saw what he was holding, my heart turned to ice, piece by piece. "Husband, I don't know. I have never done anything to wrong you. I never leave the house. I've never even met another man besides you." Connor's response was a slap across my face. He stared at me with malice, his hands tightening around my neck. "Arabella, who was he?" He took me again, like an object, dragging me to the window. He made me scream in pain, asking me again and again who my lover was. Humiliation and pain left no room for thought. In my despair, I begged him to let me die. "Husband, without the blood, I deserve to die. Let me die. Please, for the sake of our past, grant me a shred of dignity. Let me take my own life now." I had never seen this side of Connor. He laughed. "Die, Arabella. I will make you a despised whore. I will bring shame upon your family because of you. I will make you live the rest of your life in misery, until you tell me who he was." He kept his word the next morning. He had me tied up and sent to my family's home. A crowd gathered to watch as the Marchioness's old maidservant forced me to my knees. "Your eldest daughter did not bleed on her wedding night. Lord Wang owes my house an explanation." My father stumbled out of the main gate. When he saw me, he slapped me without a second thought. A disgrace to the family. A disgrace. He beat his chest and wept, then told the Marquise's household to do with me as they pleased. "A daughter who brings such shame, my family has no such daughter. Whether you beat her, kill her, or sell her, do as you wish. We will not say a word." righteous and just. He disowned me. I knelt foolishly on the busy street, watching as the family that had never offered me any warmth cast me aside. Perhaps I should not have lived. The day my mother died, she should have taken me with her. Why was I alive, only to suffer such humiliation day after day? My stepmother also came out. She glanced at me with disdain and ushered the old maidservant inside. After a long discussion, the two families decided to demote me to a lowly concubine and send Lila to the Marquise's estate instead. My family, having lost face in the matter, nearly bankrupted themselves to put together another dowry for Lila. The heir wedding was not a grand affair. The day Lila entered the estate, the maidservant in charge of me tied my hands again. His lordship has graciously allowed you to serve him in his bedchamber. I was washed without a shred of dignity and tied to the front of their marriage bed. Lila looked at me with amusement. "Oh, sister, you look so wretched," she giggled, covering her mouth as she snuggled into Connor's embrace. "Brother Connor, on our happy day, why did you bring her in here?" Connor squeezed Lila's waist and whispered in her ear, "She is like a wooden plank in bed, not at all as passionate and charming as you. Lila let her learn how a proper wife serves her husband, so she can better serve you in the future." "Brother Connor, you are so naughty. A month ago in the back garden, you really wore me out." My mind exploded. I looked up in disbelief. A month ago, the back garden? No one paid me any attention. Connor only gave me a cold glance before undoing Lila's clothes and kissing her. Their passionate moans were right next to my ear, making me want to vomit. I had thought he married Lila out of anger, that he felt betrayed and was retaliating. But I was wrong. They had been involved even before I married into the estate. Connor, while telling me he loved me for all eternity, was also courting Lila. How laughable. That entire night. My heart felt as if it were being stabbed and churned to pieces. I cried and laughed, my tears staining their red wedding quilt, spreading in a pool of hopeless despair. I hated it so much. Hated that I had entrusted my life to such a person. Hated that the heavens were so unjust, allowing no light into my life. As soon as I returned to my room, Mrs. Gable opened the window and proudly displayed the fox pelt in a prominent place. "This is a fine pelt. Your mother had several when she was alive, much larger than this one." My mother was the youngest daughter of the powerful Sterling family from the South. She had been tricked into marrying my father, whose family was in decline. Her health was poor, and she passed away soon after giving birth to me. The Sterling family looked down on my father and, fearing entanglement, ignored me completely. It was only after Connor helped build my reputation that they deigned to write me a couple of letters. But having seen the coldness of the world, I had only replied curtly, unwilling to form a deeper connection. So, while the rest of the Wang family was a happy unit, I was always an outsider. My father saw no benefit in me, and finding my constant sorrowful face an eyesore, never paid me much attention. The fox fur Connor gave me was warm and smooth to the touch. I was not worthy of such a fine thing in the Wang household. In my past life, Lila had cut this very pelt to shreds in front of me and thrown it into the fire. Some people from the gutter really think they deserve to climb to the top. Sister, we'll see who has the last laugh. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Not until I became a lowly concubine and Lila joyfully married into the Marquise's estate. Brother-in-law couldn't bear to part with his childhood sweetheart, but he also said you were dull, like a nun in the mountains. He couldn't stand that you were no longer a virgin, yet he took me before your wedding. Sister, this love story of yours that everyone envied was not so strong after all. It couldn't even withstand a small trick from my mother and me. Only then did I know what a fiery pit they had pushed me into. This time I would personally deliver the fox pelt to Lila's room. Since you two are so fond of each other, I will naturally do everything I can to help you. Many of my mother's servants had been replaced by my stepmother over the years. Only one girl my age, Clara, remained. I summoned her and lit a brazier. The red charcoal glowed, its smoke curling up, reflecting in her panicked eyes. "Clara, I cannot give you what my stepsister promised, but I can promise you a clean death, one that will not implicate your family." My direct words made Clara collapse to the floor in terror. "My lady, have mercy. Have mercy." I didn't even bother with the formalities, like asking why she betrayed me or offering to spare her life. I placed her family's servitude contracts on the table beside me. Mrs. Gable grabbed her by the hair and held her face close to the red, hot coals. "I also know about your brother forcing a woman into prostitution. I've had everything investigated. If you fail to do what I ask, someone will go to the authorities tomorrow and report your entire family. They will likely be executed. Take this pelt. Say you have something important to discuss with her alone. Once the room is empty, you can use the skills they taught you on my dear sister." I lifted my chin, and a servant stepped forward to pry open Clara's mouth and feed her a pill. "Clara, if you return safely, I will give you the antidote. Otherwise, your intestines will rot." In my past life, my stepmother had paid an old woman to teach Clara how to deflower me in my sleep. Such a fine skill. It would be a waste not to try it herself. I was betting that Lila would once again cut the pelt to shreds, and inside that fox fur was the potent sleeping drug I had prepared for her. Just as Clara left, my personal maid, Eliza, came in. "My lady, Lord Connor is asking to see you in the front hall. He says someone is trying to harm you, and you must find a way to go to him." This hadn't happened in my past life. I subconsciously touched the wound on my leg from the day I was reborn. The pain helped calm me slightly. "I will not see him." Mrs. Gable took out paper and ink and spread a felt mat on the small table. She placed a few sheets of decorative paper on it before speaking. "My lady's disposition has changed. This is good." She looked up at me with affection, her eyes moist. In my short, tragic past life, she was the only one who truly protected me. I took Mrs. Gable's hand and smiled slowly. Before, I had nothing, so I begged for scraps, acted obediently, hoping for someone's favor. But I was wrong. That is why, even though I held her family's contracts, Clara still dared to betray me. People look for who is on top, to climb higher. They must trample those below. I was so wrong. I have nothing. So they should fear me, respect me, and hand over what I want. Grandma, they have more to lose than I do. It took me a long time, and a life, to understand that. Me single, wretched life, whoever it collides with will surely be bloodied. When Eliza returned, she was running. She was terrified. "My lady, Clara is dead. She died in the second young lady's courtyard, bleeding from all orifices, and the second young lady is still in a daze." I let out a breath and nodded slowly. "Tomorrow, send someone to the authorities to report everything her brother has done." "Clara, oh Clara, I lied to you. You made me suffer so much. I want your entire family to suffer." When my father returned from his post, I had already been kneeling in the corridor for an hour. He saw me, strode over, and kicked me in the shoulder. "You wretched thing, why don't you just die?" My stepmother came over, weeping, to stop him. "My lord, don't hit her. It must be something Lila and I did to upset her. That is why she harmed her own sister." I held onto the railing and knelt up straight again. "Father, I am willing to give the marriage to Connor to my sister." Even my stepmother's fake crying stopped for a moment. A second later, she said weakly, "Arabella knows that Lord Connor wants no one but her. Isn't this just rubbing salt in Lila's wounds?" But this sentence sobered my enraged father. He had schemed his entire life to reach a minor fifth-rank position. This marriage was his only hope right now. But he glanced at his weeping wife and hardened his heart. "Your sister has been crying ever since she woke up. You will kneel here until you understand your mistake." I said nothing, lowering my head like a quail. Kneeling was nothing. My biggest worry now was my stepmother. The old woman who had taught Clara had long been dealt with. Now that Clara was dead, my stepmother would be tormented by suspicion. In that half, her that Lila was unconscious. What had I made Clara do? She wouldn't even dare to call a physician. When it came to her own daughter, she couldn't risk even the slightest leak. At this thought, a slow smile spread across my face. Winter came quickly. Snow began to fall on the night of my punishment. Mrs. Gable had already come once in the afternoon. This time, she brought a hand warmer and a brazier. For 3 whole days, Lila was back to her lively self, and the entire family forgot I was still kneeling there. When my father remembered me, his expression had softened considerably. "All you had to do was apologize. Your stubbornness is truly unlikable." I couldn't stand up. 2 servants had to help me into my father's study. It wasn't too cold. I was used to such days in my past life, but my knees would need some time to recover. I held the warm tea, and only after taking a sip did I let out a cold breath. "Father, do you know that my sister has been in love with the young lord for a long time? They meet at every banquet." "What nonsense. It seems you haven't knelt enough. Now you are slandering your own sister." I didn't argue. Instead, I handed him a thick stack of papers. "Aren't you curious, Father, how my maid could have been poisoned to death in my sister's courtyard? My sister, unable to win Lord Connor's affection, bribed my maid to poison me. Fortunately, I was clever enough to avoid it. Otherwise, it would have been your eldest daughter who died." The purchase records from the apothecary, the maid's confession. It was all there. My dear father's hand trembled as he looked at it. The entire scroll fell into the brazier, sending up a puff of smoke. I covered my nose and coughed twice. "Don't be afraid, Father. I am not here to accuse or demand punishment. The Marquise's family is simple. They are nobles of several generations and do not involve themselves in factional disputes. Although they have declined somewhat in recent years, it is still a good match. But because they are not involved in factional disputes, how much can they truly help you, Father?" Seeing that I had changed the subject, my father frowned, confused. "What does a young girl know of such things? You should go back and rest." "Father, I want to try my luck in the Crown Prince's palace." Oh, my father slapped his forehead. "What are you thinking? Do you want to be a royal princess?" I lifted my head, revealing my fair and beautiful face. "What if I only wish to be a high-ranking concubine, or even a lesser one would do?" My father was stunned. I knew he was calculating. I had been promised to the Connor family long ago. Lila was a rash and spoiled child, and they both doted on her. They would never send her to the palace to serve others. I smiled. "Father, what if I told you that the stack of papers you just burned were all forged by me?" The usually quiet study fell silent for a moment. Connor pursued me for my beauty. I could kneel in the snow for 3 days. That was my resilience. I caught my stepmother and Lila's mistake. That was my intelligence. I poisoned Clara without a second thought. That was my ruthlessness. I forged evidence to negotiate with my own father. That was my cunning. Then, my father's brow had relaxed, but he was still worried. "Will Lord Connor agree? Our family's rank is low, and your mother's family offers no support." I laughed. "He has met with your daughter in the back garden so many times. Lila is young and foolish, but is he a noble lord? Also a fool. If this were to be discovered, you would have to risk your life and smash your head against the imperial plaque at their estate. The Marquise's family would be more terrified than ours. Father, fortune is found in risk, and it is also lost in risk." My stepmother was of course delighted. In her eyes, a prince's concubine was no better than a serving girl. Marrying into a Marquise's family was far more practical. And how to make the Connor family swallow this bitter pill was not my concern. My stepmother had a whole arsenal of schemes waiting for them. After I rejected Connor last time, he sent messages every few days, even begging my father to let him see me. I considered it for a while and finally agreed. When we met again, his eyes were bloodshot, with dark circles underneath. "Arabella, did you escape them? Did they do anything to you?" He was reborn too. I turned and told Mrs. Gable to guard the door, then looked at him with tear-filled eyes. I bit my lip, my face pale, limping as I walked. I said nothing, just kept my head down. I played the part of the wronged victim to perfection. They made you kneel again. Connor's face was filled with pain. He carefully took out a brocade box. Inside was the jade hairpin he had given me before our wedding in our past life, flawless and translucent. Arabella, I carved this myself. Don't worry, I will go to your family to propose marriage as soon as I return. From now on, I will protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you again. I pushed the box back non-committally. Which Bella is the young lord calling? My sister's name also ends with law. If you call out like that, she might answer as well. Connor was stunned. He suddenly looked up at me. Arabella, why are you so strange today, have you? Come back too. I found it laughable, but I didn't laugh. The young lord is also strange today. Are you ill? What nonsense are you speaking? As soon as I said this, the room fell silent. Connor's composure slipped, and his eyes, as cold and malicious as in our past life, fixed on me. I stood up and sighed with a look of sorrow. Connor, sometimes I think, if only the person who made me suffer could suffer the exact same way, that would be wonderful. But now, I have not been schemed against. I am still pure. Arabella. Connor trembled and strode forward to take my hand. I subtly stepped back, but he was ecstatic. It was heaven that could not bear to see us lovers separated. Arabella, this time, I will not fail you after you died. That wretched woman became even more restless. I only punished her twice before she confessed everything. She told me how she had harmed you. Only then did I know I had misunderstood you. Don't worry. I will not let her get away with it when we have her in our hands. You can do with her as you please. I seemed moved, covering my mouth with a handkerchief as if remembering a painful memory. Connor, you must avenge me. There were few banquets in winter. The first was the Duke's plum blossom viewing party. To liven things up in the cold weather, all the officials' families were invited. My stepmother, following my father's instructions, said she would take me, but she had countless outfits made for Lila. An orange one was deemed too old and sent to me, a pink one too frivolous, a sky blue one too plain. I clicked my tongue at the garish pile of clothes. She'll say again how many clothes she had made for me in a season, and yet I didn't like any of them. When Mrs. Gable asked what I would wear, I looked in the bronze mirror and remembered my one encounter with the crown prince in my past life. At that time, everyone knew about Connor's abuse of me. There were even lewd drawings circulating. The Marchioness was hosting a banquet, and I was being watched by 2 servants as I worked in the garden. The crown prince came by then, accompanied by Connor, who pointed out the various rare flowers in the garden. When they passed me, the prince paused. Lord Connor, death is the ultimate punishment. She is a pitiful person. Connor gave me a dark look, then forced a smile and agreed. When I was young, I heard a teacher say that many women in the northern regions, because they ride horses and work, do not bleed on their wedding night. Mrs. Gable asked again, and I snapped out of my reverie. Wasn't there a goose, yellow outfit made last year with a moon-white cloak? Yellow was bright and would attract the most attention. The prince had a nasal ailment and couldn't stand strong fragrances, so I emptied my sachet and filled it with dried orange peel. My hair and hairpins were impeccable, but I tucked 2 thumb-sized velvet flowers behind my ear. Mrs. Gable's eyes were full of smiles as she tied the silk sash with great care. The young lady has grown up. With such beauty and character, the young lord of the Connor family is truly fortunate. The smile in my eyes froze. When we reached the gate, my stepmother and Lila had not yet arrived. I had to stand in the wind on my aching legs, waiting. What, is sister going to ride in the same carriage as us? Lila had always been flamboyant and outspoken, saying whatever nasty thing came to her mind. I took a step back. Today's banquet is a grand affair. It would be improper for us to arrive in separate carriages. Don't you agree, Mother? My stepmother naturally understood my meaning and pulled Lila into the carriage. When I lifted the curtain, the mother and daughter were already snuggled together affectionately. Lila looked at me provocatively, saying with triumph, "It is a pity sister's own mother died so early. Otherwise, you wouldn't be all alone today." In my old self, no matter how hurt I was, I would always pretend not to care on the surface, as if that would protect me from the sting of such a scene. I smiled and raised my hand, slapping her across the face. "Who gave you permission to speak of my mother?" Lila screamed and lunged at me. I raised my hand and slapped her again. "No matter, at worst, none of us will go to the Duke's banquet." My stepmother seemed to finally react, quickly pulling Lila back. "Lila, sit down. I will deal with her when we get home." The rest of the way, the mother and daughter glared at me with clenched teeth. It was quite pleasant. The Duke's banquet was a grand affair, with carriages and horses lining the streets. Over 20 servants were at the gate to greet the guests. One carriage was pulled to a back alley. Another's horses were led to the woods. Before the invitation cards were even presented, a head maid would greet them according to their rank. My stepmother smiled with pride. "You must watch these arrangements carefully. You will need them in the future. You cannot be careless." Lila meekly agreed. We walked through corridors and gardens, winding through countless turns before reaching today's venue, the Crimson Snow Garden. Men on one side, women on the other, separated by a small ornamental lake. On either side of the lake was a pavilion, where young lords and ladies from noble families would gather to compose poetry. The lake breeze would carry their voices across, and so their talents were made known. In my past life, at such events, Connor was always the busiest, busy helping me with my writing, correcting my meter, and finding friends among the nobility to praise me. He helped me make a name for myself in a circle that did not belong to me. It was also he who, on the second day of our marriage, dragged me to my family's home and loudly proclaimed my infidelity. He tied my hands and feet to prevent me from taking my own life. He threatened my family, forcing me to live as a lowly concubine, doing the work of a servant. To watch me suffer, he married Lila and forced me to serve them. Afterwards, Connor threw the prepared blood-stained cloth in my face. Or, take a good look. Overnight, I went from a blissful bride to a promiscuous woman. Almost everyone cursed me. They pitied the peerless young lord, feeling his sincere love had been misplaced. At this thought, I turned and walked straight into the small plum blossom grove, red blossoms against white snow. There were few footprints on the path. I had only taken a few steps when I stopped. The noble figure ahead wore purple robes, his black hair held in a white jade crown. Just his back exuded an aura of power. I looked on greedily. This was what I sought in this life, the power to trample these wolves underfoot. If I succeeded, I would be an imperial consort, a noble consort, second only to one. Everyone would have to bow to me. No one could ever bully me again. If I failed, it would be the crime of deceiving the emperor, implicating my entire clan. That was fine, too. When Prince Theodore turned around, I looked up at the same time. In the handkerchief I held were fallen plum blossoms. The snow was soft underfoot, like walking on clouds. Whose young lady is that ahead? I did not answer him, only curtsied appropriately and stepped aside to let him pass. What an unreasonable young lady. I was clearly here first. Why should I make way for you? I feigned surprise and knelt in the snow. Your Highness, I, Arabella, have offended you. I beg for your forgiveness. Theodore was not angry, merely waving his hand dismissively. What are you collecting these flowers for? To eat. I paused and looked up, a smile curving my lips. There is a recipe in the simple fare of a mountain dweller. First, soak white plum blossoms in sandalwood. Infused water mix with flour to make wanton skins. Use a 5-petaled plum blossom-shaped iron cutter to cut out the shapes. After boiling, pass them through a clear chicken broth. Each guest is served no more than 200 blossoms. One can enjoy a meal without forgetting the plum blossoms. I saw them and wished to try. Perhaps my answer surprised him. Theodore clicked his tongue. My nose is not well. In winter, Nothing has any taste. But hearing you speak, I am a little hungry myself. Fine, you may continue picking. I acknowledged his permission and stood up again, carefully searching for fallen blossoms. And along the way, I picked up a smooth, undecorated jade pendant. In less than a quarter of an hour, Mrs. Gable found me. She handed me a hand warmer from the host and said softly, "There has been trouble with the second young lady." At the poetry gathering, Lord Connor somehow slipped and fell into the pond, shattering the thin layer of ice. And stranger still, our second young lady screamed, "Connor," and dived right in after him. The Duke's household was already having a headache. Now 2 of them have fallen in. The pond looked like a pot of boiling dumplings. The second young lady refused to come out, insisting she had to save Lord Connor. Mrs. Gable already knew I no longer wished to marry into the Connor family. She recounted the story with great relish, her eyes nearly rolling back into her head. When they were pulled out, they were soaking wet and clinging to each other. Truly, a scandal. I dabbed my handkerchief to my lips and smiled. "Grandma, please take this jade pendant to the Duchess. Say I found it on the path." This was Theodore's treasure. In my past life, he had lost it in the plum garden, causing quite a stir. I slowly made my way back to the banquet, overhearing discussions along the way. Heavens, what kind of creature is that Miss Wang, pulled from a frozen pond, and now she is barged into the young lord's room to take care of him? The Duke's household must be cursing their luck. Didn't they say the young lord was interested in the elder Miss Wang? Which daughter it is hardly matters. A minor 5th rank official latching on to the Marquise's family. It would be worth it even if they sent both daughters over. Well, it seemed my path to the Eastern Palace would have to start from the lowest rank. After the commotion, my stepmother and Lila finally emerged as the banquet was ending. Lila was wrapped in thick clothes, her face pale, needing support to walk, and clutching several hand warmers. Even so, she looked at me with triumph. "Tomorrow the young lord and I will be formally engaged. Sister, you must give me a large red envelope." I said nothing. As I took a step, a head maid from the Duke's household approached. "Miss Wang, the item you found is of great importance. This is a jade scepter gifted by His Highness, the Crown Prince. His Highness says it is a reward for your discretion." She held a large lacquered box with purple cloud patterns, her eyes flicking dismissively over my stepmother. "Is the second young lady cold? The Duchess had me prepare a fine ginseng root, which was just delivered to your estate. The Duchess said it is a pity that there are 2 more banquets this month, which the second young lady will likely be unable to attend. She must rest well." The maid placed the item in Mrs. Gable's hands and turned to leave. My stepmother, who had been looking rather pleased just a moment ago, now looked embarrassed and quickly pulled Lila into the carriage. Lila recovered from the cold in 2 days, but Connor fell gravely ill, running a high fever for several days. My stepmother took Lila to visit him daily, and rumors began to spread. They said that Connor had always visited the Wang household for Lila, that their love was as strong as gold, and that when he fell into the water, she had immediately jumped in after him. Lila was praised for her devotion and Connor for choosing the right person. But the Connor family did not think so. As soon as the rumors started, they began to subtly prevent Lila from visiting. My stepmother, with a curl of her lip, immediately went to the Connor estate to cause a scene. "It was your son who came to our house every day with gifts. I still have the gift lists. Wasn't it your family who eagerly came for a viewing last month? Now your son falls into the water, and my daughter risks her life to save him. And you deny it all. If you don't give us an explanation today, I will kill myself right here. The Marquise's family is powerful, but you can't just trample on us minor officials." Her shrewish display gave the Marchioness a splitting headache. It was Connor, now awake, who coldly agreed to the marriage. If she wants to marry, then let her. A reply from the Sterling family also arrived. The Sterlings had many daughters married into other families, and their network of relatives was vast and complex. The family had long forgotten about my mother, a daughter who had lost a power struggle long ago, but as soon as they read that I was to enter the Eastern Palace, They immediately sent 2 of my cousins north. Me father also became proactive, even gritting his teeth to hire a former palace governess for me. For both my daughters to marry so well, it must be the ancestors' blessing. I smiled softly and sighed at the right moment. It is a pity we have no male heir in the Wang family. If I had a brother, my path in the future would be more secure. Over the years, my father had taken concubines, but none had ever carried a child to term. He found the affairs of the inner court tiresome and had given up. Now that I had brought it up, he fell into silent thought. Arabella is indeed the more considerate one. The following spring, the Marquise's family sent people to marry Lila. The procession was modest, and even the servants were listless, but Lila was overjoyed and insisted that I help her with her wedding dress. All those years of scheming for nothing. If I hadn't asked you to come, sister, you would probably be crying in your room right now. I smiled and patted her red wedding dress. It is just something I didn't want, Lila. You've always loved picking up my scraps. She stood up in a rage, the jewels in her hair trembling. I held her by the shoulders. So ill-mannered. How will you enjoy the grand gift I have prepared for you? In this life, with Connor reborn and the engagement set early, they had likely only met in secret a few times and had not yet consummated their relationship. Sister, the special skill that you and Mother had Clara learn, do you think she learned it well? The day she died, what do you think she did in your room? I didn't need to say more. Lila's face turned deathly pale. I need to find my mother. Tell my mother to come. Go find my mother. Mother is greeting guests in the front hall right now. How could she have time for you? The wedding matron knocked on the door with a smile. The auspicious hour has arrived. It is time for the bride to depart. Perfect timing. Lila married quickly, and she returned just as quickly. Not even waiting until the second day. Connor threw the bound Lila at our doorstep that very night. My father and stepmother, roused from their drunken, pleasant dreams, stumbled out and fell to the ground in shock at the sight. A maidservant from the Marquise's household stood with her hands on her hips and started shouting. Lord Wang, you've come at a good time. Your daughter did not bleed on her wedding night. What kind of morals does your family have? Lila was in a more wretched state than I had been in my past life. Her clothes were disheveled, revealing her undergarments. There were 2 clear handprints on her face. Seeing her mother, she screamed, "Mother, save me, mother. Save me." Well, she was still better off than I had been. No matter how I was abused, I had no one to cry out to. My stepmother snapped out of her shock and ran to embrace Lila, ignoring the servants trying to hold her back. My dear daughter, it was that bitch, Arabella. That bitch did this to you. Her words struck my father like a bolt of lightning. This daughter was clearly ruined. The one entering the Eastern Palace could not be implicated. He rushed forward and slapped my stepmother across the face. Foolish woman. Thinking of his own future, he collected himself. Lord Connor, you say my daughter did not bleed. Are you going to slander my family's reputation with just your words? Before the wedding, you met with my daughter in the back garden many times. Who knows what you did, and now you dare to accuse my family. I leaned against the pillar, almost applauding. In my excitement, 2 tears fell. Mrs. Gable rushed over to wipe them away. Good girl, don't cry. I shook my head, looking at the 20 female guards the Sterling family had sent. I am crying for them. What a devoted family of 3. After my father spoke, Connor did not reply. Let's talk inside, Lord Wang. Save yourself some face. He signaled his servants, and they barged in. The moment he saw me, Connor immediately approached me with a fawning expression. Arabella, I've brought the wretched woman to you. He turned and dragged Lila before me. I have demoted her from wife to concubine. You are still the most honored lady of my house. Let's start over. Arabella, I will treat you well. I ignored him and slowly knelt to look at Lila. She lay wretchedly on the floor, her eyes filled with hatred. Are you satisfied? Seeing me demoted to a lowly concubine suffering such humiliation. Are you satisfied, Arabella? How can you be so vicious? I am your own sister." She began to cry, her face streaked with tears. I watched her for a while longer, feeling a knot of resentment in my heart slowly unravel. Then I spoke. "But this was the path you and your mother prepared for me, wasn't it? Have you forgotten? How is it that when you harm me, it is perfectly justified, but when I use the same methods on you, I am vicious?" Lila stopped crying, her body trembling. "No, I didn't. Sister, save me. This was all Mother's plan. I couldn't stop her, sister. I don't want to go back to the Marquise's estate. You don't know how he treats me. I don't want to go back. It was all your mother's doing. Don't worry, sister. The Sterling family has sent many beautiful concubines to our father. Your mother will soon have nothing left. Without her only support, you will have to suffer in the Marquise's estate for the rest of your life." "Impossible. I don't believe you." "You bitch, I'll kill you." I stood up and took a disgusted step back. Seeing that I had vented my anger, Connor was even more pleased. He said to my father loudly, "This second daughter of yours is no longer a virgin. She cannot be the proper lady of my house. Demote her to a lowly concubine. Lord Wang, let's set an auspicious date for me to marry your eldest daughter." He had once again hit a nerve with my father. "Impossible!" He jumped up and down in agitation. "Do with this wretched creature as you please. Kill her or sell her. I don't care. From now on, the Wang family has no such daughter. But my eldest daughter, she is the one chosen by His Highness the Crown Prince himself. She will be entering the Eastern Palace next month." Connor's face changed. He strode over and grabbed my father. "What? Say that again. Where is Arabella going?" My father, held by the collar, swallowed hard. The Eastern Palace. "I don't believe you." Connor shoved my father aside and reached for me. "Arabella, are they forcing you? You love me so much. How could you go to the Eastern Palace?" Before I could speak, I gave a weak glance backward, and the guards behind me stepped forward and slapped Connor across the face. "Insolence. The Crown Prince's decree is here. How dare you question it?" The slap stunned Connor. He had come with such confidence, seeing me as his possession. He never imagined that I would become someone in the Eastern Palace, someone he would have to kneel before. "Impossible. Arabella, if you do not marry me today, I will cause a scene in the streets. I will go to the Eastern Palace and report you. I'll see to it that your entire family dies." "Go ahead." I lifted my head and looked at him calmly. "The Marquise's family has over 500 people. Even if half of them die, it is a win for my family. Let's die together." Connor lost his nerve. He took 2 steps back, then looked up with a crazed expression. "Arabella, I know you are being forced. I will find a way. Wait for me." With that, he and his entourage left in disgrace. Of course, he didn't forget to drag Lila with him. My stepmother cried until her voice was hoarse, but she could not keep her daughter. The next day, my father summoned the clan elders and formally expelled Lila from the family. My stepmother was locked in her room after her outburst. "Tell everyone she has gone mad." The more he thought about it, the more miserable he felt. He had spent half his life with these 2 foolish women and didn't even have a son. In a fit of anger, he took in all the concubines I had arranged for him. There are 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no heir is the greatest. That venomous woman is not even a fraction as good as my dear departed wife. I visited my stepmother once. In just a few days, she had aged terribly, her hair mostly white. As soon as she saw me, she lunged. "Bitch, you harmed my Lila. I'll kill you, bitch." She was held back by 2 strong servants wailing helplessly. "If you have a problem, take it out on me. Kill me. Sell me to a brothel. Just leave my daughter alone." I said nothing. Just watched quietly. It was pathetic, looking at her face, I thought. If my own mother were alive, she would have protected me like this. She would have cried for me like this. So I said, "My sister has been demoted to a lowly concubine. I hear Lord Connor tortures her in new ways every day. She is living a life worse than death. I might have gone mad too, finding a semblance of my long-lost mother by tormenting my enemy. Watching my stepmother's hysterical state, I felt a strange sense of joy. Connor tried every means to get a letter to me. In it, he poured out his heart, saying that after I died in our past life, he realized how much he loved me. He said he had seen all the beauties in the world, but none gave him the feeling I did. He told me to pack my bags and that he would elope with me in 3 days. I almost laughed out loud after reading it. I had never realized that this two-faced, honey-tongued creature was such a romantic. Mrs. Gable, go tell the messenger that I agree. 3 days later was the auspicious day for my entry into the Eastern Palace. In my past life, I had entrusted myself completely to this man, believing, like countless other women, that a good marriage was a woman's true path. How laughable. What did Connor love about me? My beauty, my quiet and obedient nature, the fact that I was easy to control and manipulate. Latter, it was his unwillingness to let go. He felt that a spineless thing like me should forever be in his grasp. He never imagined I would lose my virginity, and that he couldn't even find out who the man was. Connor's dark nature was then given full license. The abuse and degradation he inflicted on me gave him endless pleasure. He wouldn't even allow me to die. So-called power, so-called control. This time, I wanted a taste of it too. While Connor was freezing in the woods outside the city, I entered a small sedan chair at sunset and was carried through a side gate of the palace, down a long, quiet corridor. The journey was solitary and cold, a world away from the boisterous wedding that had sent me to hell in my past life. But before I entered the palace, my 2 cousins from the Sterling family had presented 10 carts of rare treasures to the emperor, claiming it was a token of their family's gratitude for his benevolence. Everyone knew they were there to support me. I entered the palace in a small sedan chair, but I carried tens of thousands of silver taels on my person. 2 other women entered the palace with me, both with higher ranks. I was a step below them. The crown prince was busy and didn't visit for over 10 days, only going to the crown princess's courtyard once. The crown princess was the granddaughter of the head of the Hanlon Academy, a true noblewoman. When I paid my respects, she never spoke a harsh word, let alone tried to make things difficult for me. The concubine in the West Wing, Lady Wei, was young and loved to joke. She was always the most talkative during our morning greetings. Sisters, have you heard? There has been a major event in the city. You are always the first to know. What interesting news is it? Tell us. The Marquis Connor's family, that romantic fool, just got married. And the very next day he demoted his new wife to a concubine. Now he is causing a scene at the Wang family's house every day. Several pairs of eyes subtly shifted towards me, but Lady Wei seemed not to notice. My heavens, it is quite the spectacle. Lord Connor went mad in the streets, demanding the Wang family compensate him with another daughter. Doesn't the Wang family have 2 daughters, besides that second one? The crown princess coughed at the right moment, interrupting her. Oh, my head is spinning again, Sister Wang. You are a generous person, please don't be offended. I slowly brought the warm teacup to my lips and took a slow sip, not replying. To reply would be to acknowledge the insult. To let her words hang in the air was better than being seen as a pushover. But Lady Wei didn't feel awkward at all, laughing to herself. The Connor family has been in decline for years, and now with such a useless heir I am afraid they're done for. It wasn't until the crown princess dismissed us that Lady Wei fanned herself as she walked out. Well, I am surprised she is still alive. If my family produced such a disgrace, I would have smashed my head against a wall long ago. I never expected that Theodore would come to my chambers that very night. He smelled the dried orange peel on my desk and smiled. How refreshing. Your plum blossom soup has been on my mind for days. You must make it for me sometime. I've been taking the imperial physician's prescription, and my sense of smell has improved. He spoke so much before I could even curtsy. It was a little disarming. I knelt to perform the full rite, but he helped me up. There is no need for such formalities in the future. The gifts from the Sterling family were very useful. My father was pleased, and you have also earned merit. I nodded and smiled, but shifted my body awkwardly to block the desk. Theodore grew curious, and I reluctantly revealed the characters I had just written. This. He paused for a moment, and despite his excellent composure, he couldn't help but chuckle. This handwriting is truly shabby. I lowered my head, feigning shyness. Theodore loved calligraphy and painting, and his own hand was magnificent, powerful, and fluid. Even the emperor praised it. Seeing my terrible writing, he spent the entire night teaching me, starting with how to hold the brush. He didn't even let me eat dinner, let alone attend to him in bed. But it was a happy outcome. It wasn't for nothing that I had been practicing every night. I had just acquired the crown prince himself as my calligraphy master. Theodore was a good man and a good crown prince. Besides the crown princess's courtyard, he visited the other concubines' chambers with roughly equal frequency each month. Lady Wei was the first to become pregnant. She was so overjoyed she distributed rewards throughout the entire Eastern Palace, like a little goddess of wealth. Unfortunately, her celebration was too ostentatious. Before 3 months had passed, the child was gone. 4 imperial physicians investigated thoroughly, but could only conclude that her vital energy was too strong, leading to a deficiency of yin and an excess of fire. I am curious, how did you do it? The crown princess enjoyed embroidery but feared it would strain her eyes, so she often invited me over to help her with patterns. When she asked me this, the needle in my hand did not pause. Your Highness, I am innocent. Before I could even make a move, she lost the imperial grandchild on her own. It was heaven protecting the imperial firstborn in your womb. I wished to earn this merit, but I lacked the ability. Her deep eyes watched me for a long moment, then she smiled. You are a clever speaker. I quietly lowered my head and continued to embroider the auspicious purple cloud pattern. After becoming pregnant, Lady Wei developed a craving for steamed buns. The filling was hidden within the dough, so no one could discern her food preferences. Her family had also obtained a prescription to ensure a healthy pregnancy, which included a moderate amount of ginseng. Therefore, no one could discover that the steamer baskets used for her buns every day had been boiled in ginseng water. A moderate amount became an excessive amount. The mother's body became overheated. Even if she had carried the child to term, the massive amount of ginseng would have caused postpartum hemorrhage. The more I thought, the faster my hands moved, one stitch chasing the next. Was Lady Wei at fault? Bullying a background, less person like me, was not her mistake. Her mistake was getting pregnant before the crown princess. Wasn't that just asking for death? This princess, who looked the most benevolent, had a heart blacker than mine. Theodore was morose for 2 months after losing his first child, only to learn that he would now have a legitimate heir. He was so happy he practically ran home from court. At the end of the year, the crown princess gave birth to a little imperial grandson. I personally attended to her during her confinement. When Theodore asked why, I just shook my head and said that I felt a kinship with the crown princess, as if she were my own sister. He was puzzled and had someone investigate, learning about the life I had led at home. From then on, he showed me a genuine affection. Just as the crown princess finished her confinement, Mrs. Gable sent me a message. My stepmother had died of anger, provoked by one of the household's new concubines. Lila, suffering in the Marquise's estate, had tried every means to send a letter home. My stepmother had received one. She had immediately grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed out, intending to rescue her suffering daughter from the Marquise's estate. Coincidentally, my father's new concubine, Yanner, was pregnant. Not only was she not afraid of my stepmother's crazed state, she even took pleasure in describing Lila's suffering to her. My stepmother, already weakened by 2 years of confinement, had a stroke and died 2 days later. I looked at the letter with a sense of melancholy. Tell Mrs. Gable to pass the news to my dear sister. Mother and daughter are 2 peas in a pod. She must know that this time, she has no one left to rely on. Also, tell Yanner that once her child is born, my father will be of no use. She can deal with him as she sees fit. The year Theodore ascended the throne, I also became pregnant. That same year, the now consort Wei was caught poisoning my pregnancy tonic. The years of bullying she had inflicted on me were also brought to light. Theodore was furious and had her thrown into the cold palace. On the day my little prince turned 1 month old, the emperor held a banquet. I saw Connor again. He stared at me with malice, as if I were a pet that had betrayed him. The gentle, scholarly air he once had was now impossible for him to fake. I heard that he had been relentlessly torturing Lila at home, and his official duties had suffered. He had made several mistakes and had almost been dismissed. He looked increasingly worn down, and I sat radiant by the emperor's side. All those below had to kowtow to me. How the tables had turned. When my prince was 3 years old, the empress passed away after a long illness, leaving the position vacant. The various consorts fought bitterly for the power to manage the harem. I wrote a letter to the Sterling family in the south, asking them to purchase a large amount of grain and supplies and send them to General Zhang's army in the northwest. Oh, and one small thing, I had them pay to have Connor recommended to the current prince of Ping'an, Theodore's brother, who was also the leader of the Northwestern Rebellion. Connor was too obsessed. Because I was also a reincarnator, he cautiously waited until the prince had mobilized his Northwestern army before committing. Connor smugly thought that I, a woman confined to the palace, would know nothing of such major state affairs. Now with him as a strategist, wouldn't the Prince of Ping'an quickly achieve his grand ambition? But he never expected that the first battle the prince had easily won in the Northwest in our past life would be lost in just 3 months. Theodore rewarded those who had contributed. He transferred the main branch of the Sterling family from the south to serve as officials in the capital. I was named noble consort and given the Phoenix seal to manage the harem in the empress's stead. I had once dreamed of a day when Connor would kneel at my feet, kowtowing like a dog wagging its tail. But when that day came, I felt that seeing him again was beneath me. It would be a loss of status. The most promising member of the Sterling family, my cousin, was appointed to the Ministry of Justice. On his first day, he went to see Connor. By then, Connor was in a wretched state. He had been escorted back to the capital, exposed to the elements. A few beatings were the worst suffering he had ever known. My cousin stood outside his cell, studying him for a moment. This man's crimes are heinous. He was the rebel prince's right-hand man. Ah, but blood is thick, and his majesty is a benevolent ruler. Here is what we'll do. Don't let him die. Devise a new and interesting form of torture for this man named Connor each day, to show the world the consequences of aiding a tyrant. Connor finally seemed to understand. He lunged forward like a madman. Bitch. That bitch sent you to torture me. I treated her well, the faithless whore Arabella. Before he could finish, a jailer cut out his tongue. The young jailer looked at my cousin, trying to curry favor. My lord, forgive me. This man's mouth was too foul. My cousin smiled. I will report this to her ladyship, and see that you are rewarded for your service. By the way, I hear this Lord Connor has a taste for men, for a different kind of pleasure. If there are any in this prison with similar tastes, you may help to arrange a match. Even in death, he must die beneath a man. Connor, his tongue cut out, shook his head, his mouth full of blood, but no one paid him any mind. Since I took charge of the harem, there were few things to trouble the emperor, things like miscarriages, mutual accusations, fights over favor, or the private beating of a maid. Such messy affairs rarely occurred. He often stayed in my palace, enjoying the faint scent of orange peel. Arabella, the first time I saw you in the plum grove, I thought, how can such a beauty exist in this world? Yes, what man doesn't love beauty? He loved my beauty, and I loved the power he gave me. Who cared how many people were buried in this harem? Who cared how the former empress had really fallen ill, with the phoenix seal resting by my pillow? Even the nightmares that had long plagued me disappeared. Truly, power is nurturing.